The haunt is too much.
3505. I smell the blood of you.
Welcome back to Ghoster Coasters, and today we have some spooky, exciting creeping over the Erie Peninsula of Cedar Point for the annual Halloweekends event. It was introduced in 1997 and takes place during the Halloween season, usually from the second Friday after Labor Day until the Sunday before Halloween, or sometimes into early November. At Coastermania 2024, during the coveted Q&A event, Tony Clark and the panel confirmed that the goal was to make some changes to the Halloweekends event this season, and that got us wondering what kind of spooky things the park could be looking into. Having seen the success of other haunt events, Cedar Point has been trying to become more of a destination resort, and what a better way to add on to that than an already loved and cherished event at the park. It seemed like the time was coming for some change anyways.
We want to take a look into the future, but with a small twist. Let's pretend money isn't the issue and staffing isn't a problem. How would we transform the park to make the entirety of the lands transform after dark? Remember, this is in no way affiliated with the park or associated with Cedar Point in any way. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join the spooky community today. A huge shout out goes out to all of our channel members and Coaster Ghost and producers out there. The Coaster Ghosters community is the best out there because of all of you. Let's get to the spooky fun for Halloweekends and all of our crazy ideas to transform the park entirely.
When discussing Cedar Point's Halloweekends event, you can't help but discuss the scare zone areas. Not the houses themselves, but all the actors out and about in the themed areas of the park jumping out and scaring guests. The most notable place being on the Frontier Trail. But the park used to have some really fun areas back in the mid-2000s as well. With the introduction of the new Boardwalk area, Top Thrill 2 Midway, and a focus on themed areas as a whole at the park, let's get into some ideas for scare zones and the inspiration behind them.
Getting into the first area, we wouldn't change much, so we're kicking it off here first. The area for the celebration stage would remain pretty much the same, with a huge spooky celebration to kick off the festivities every night for the park and bring the energy of Halloweekends right into the evening's spooky fun.
During the mid-2000s, Cedar Point had an area over by Disaster Transport and Wicked Twister called Carnival, an area that was basically a horror carnival-inspired area with clowns and freak show side performers. And when you entered, there was a guy on a huge platform making dark humorous jokes as you entered the chaos. Actors would jump out and interact with guests throughout the night, and the area is one of the more well-received scare zones in the park for some time. With the new Boardwalk area, the Wild Mouse music, and all the flats packages and lighting in the area, we would love to see this area make a comeback, but maybe with a little twist that they added last year, to the Bone Walk. Make it a skeleton affair.
A gaggle of bones.
Or boneheads on the Bone Walk. Would be an easy area to bring to life throughout the eerie fog over the peninsula and spooky skeletons. Woo.
So how about the bird lore of the park? More specifically, how about between Raptor and Valraven? The entirety of that midway once you go under the Raptor Loop until you get to the area exiting under Valraven's Immelin Loop and walking out the Skyride building. This area could become something along the lines of Scarecrow's Valley. And if anyone's been there in the summer, well, the red-winged blackbirds that dive bomb you as you exit rides are more than enough reason to inspire this themed area of birds. And if we wanted to make it a Cedar Point specific themed area,
then they could have a Battle of the Birds type thing between Raptor and Valraven, a scary area focused on creepy bird Halloween type of atmosphere. And yes, we know scarecrows are meant to deter birds, but alas, the crows that land on them and the blackbirds that sort of resemble them among the point, it'd be a really cool area full of an eerie atmosphere and watchful eye around every corner and turn. And I know, you guys are thinking, what about cornstalkers? And stick with us, we got an idea for that area as well, and using some of the cornstalkers maze setups around the area would look incredible. The Valraven shop and entrance covered with cornstalks and scarecrows with the Valraven logo hanging out over the top, and even had an eerie photo op by the old Valraven area where the throne used to be. Oh, and Boo Streak, so that's always a win. Best Halloweekends name change indeed.
Okay, taking things to the main midway, say between both the Skyride buildings, what could Cedar Point do here? Last year they changed it up and moved some of the graveyard to under the corkscrew area of the park. And well, it was cool, but let's reimagine this again. Midway Graveyard, featuring all of the odes to the park's history nicely decorated and dimly lit with spooky fog filling the air, and scare actors again. This is probably one of the more basic thoughts here, but make this the simple graveyard scare actor setup ghosts, mummies, zombies, or even go generic with the monsters and have monsters everyone recognizes to bring a fun and spooky yet nostalgic and memory-filled experience as soon as you walk in. They already have a Frankenstein in the Kiddy Kingdom area. Do that. A reminder of why you like the spooky, the horror, the haunted and eerie things of Halloweekends. Enough about the Midway though. Graveyard with recognizable scare monsters that evoke the sense of horror and Halloween feelings we all love and enjoy.
The new for 2024 Top Thrill 2 Midway, bright colors and high-speed adrenaline. This one's a tough area to really give a dive into, but we'll give it a try here, being that the area has been the pumpkin area for the park for the past few years, so let's keep it up and add some jack-o'-lanterns and race gear maybe, ready to race the midnight sky, continue with the really cool pumpkin and gourd designs, and make the area a vibrant pumpkin patch atmosphere like they've always done. I mean, we really love the gourds, and brothers of the back row, this is between us, but we all really love them gourds at Cedar Point, don't we guys? Anyways, those designs are really cool. I know they kind of wear out fast, but still just stick with the jack-o'-lantern design and go full force with race gear and everything involved.
The Gemini Midway used to be known for the fortune tellers' tents, and we'd like to see this area make a return and add a small twist to it. Witching hours. You hear the witches laugh as you get your fortunes told, and as you leave, the laughs go from distant to near, and from the fog a witch appears. Will you be the witch's stew, or what she brews? A broomed escape is all you can do. With the area having been turned into some sort of heavy metal tour area, we'd really love to see the fortune tellers, witches area come to life and take over. Fear Fair, if you will. Your fortune's told and may come true. Just be careful, there's witches too. For all we know, she's fortune's told. Dare to enter and see what yours holds. A distant flight like Sanderson's sisters, we're telling all of you coaster ghosters, beware of the witches. We could also see the Witch Sisters show being moved over here, which would tie the area in perfectly for all the family fun. Witches have been a thing of fascination and fear for centuries, with stories and legends passed down through generations, and it makes a perfect place for kids and adults alike as the cauldrons turns and Gemini races past. Can you escape from the witch's grasp?
And while we're walking by the coolest kids area in the park, we have to go ahead and make Camp Snoopy Camp Spooky for the kids. Camp Spooky, designed for a less intense scare experience for kids and families, would bring the joys of the great pumpkin Charlie Brown right to Cedar Point's Snoopy Campground. We could have campfire ghost stories by the lounge area at the entrance of the Camp Spooky area, sing-alongs after the ghost stories around the fire, crafts for kids and families, and potentially even Snoopy's spooky camp rangers ready to guide their little troops on an adventure for the great pumpkin Charlie Brown.
Frontier Town transforms into one of the more fun areas of the park during Halloweekends. But the real horror would come from some more scare actors and haunt effects near the Cedar Creek Mine Ride area and making it feel like a full-blown Wild West affair over there, with all of the characters from Maverick and Steel Vengeance causing chaos, from the Maverick Bridge to the train tracks and the battle for Frontier Town. The guests happen to be caught in the crossfire of all the ensuing battles. Ace states the previously untold stories of townsfolk like Lily and Lusty Lil Rosewater of Lusty Lil's Palace fame and E.J. Bellows Hammer, the village's ironworker, are explained via storyboards as guests pass through the queue of Steel Vengeance. Continued on their page, Jackson Blackjack Chamberlain, Wyatt Digger Dempsey, and Chess Wild One Watkins are the outlaws that rule the ride, physical embodiments of the tallest, fastest, wildest tagline of the Hyper Hybrid. Each has a specific reason for seeking retribution on none other than Beauregard Maverick Chamberlain, Blackjack's older brother and the neighboring 2007 intimate namesake. The elder Chamberlain, a man of questionable doings and accomplices, is described as a force for the negative in Frontier Town. Soon, each outlaw became a victim of Maverick's shifty ways. Let's bring this battle to the frontier and let guests interact in ways like never before.
Keeping with the same scare zones, let's keep the Frontier Trail almost the same, maybe with more scare actors and jump scares along the way. But this part of the park was perfectly spooky and eerie with fog machines at every corner and darkness awaiting your every scare. We can see this continuing of the Wild West and shows along the way, but a change from the Witch Sisters as we move them over to the Gemini Midway for the Fear Fair area. Let's bring in some historic Cedar Point figures and tell a story of the past through today's lens, with a focus on some of the historical aspects and significance while adding a personal touch of lore to the already eerie area. The park would have a new cohesive story for 2024 and an added experience to the arguably most beloved area of the Halloweekends area along the trail.
Or we could have a zoo stampede, with all the recent happenings of people letting animals out.
Don't do that, anybody.
No. But enough about the areas. As dusk falls upon the park and the scare actors commence upon the midways for screams and jump scares, another space for the creepy and unnerving is happening. The haunted houses come to life upon the eerie peninsula under the moonlit hours. A perfect time for us coaster ghosters out there to get the frights. And subscribe if you haven't already. Remember the old haunted house at the front of the park near the concession stands where Gatekeeper and Carousel are? What if we added another house there again to help spread the flow of lines and haunted house attractions throughout the park?
Lost in Time could be a unique haunted house experience that blends classic horror ideas with a Twilight Zone style of unsettling mystery. A new take on many of the approaches the Cedar Point houses offer, and something maybe a little more geared for the scare seekers out there and haunted house horror lovers. Throughout the experience, there would be a sense of being watched. Guests rarely see the source of the scares but would feel unseen presences lurking in the shadows. Instead of a single, monstrous threat, the horror would stem from the uncertainty of time itself. Each era hints at a past tragedy or impending doom. The monster that you're trying to escape from could be the distortion of time itself, trapping visitors in a never-ending loop, truly entering something spooky like a Twilight Zone. Forever lost within the walls of time and horrors on a seemingly never-ending journey through nightmare's time. This house wouldn't be a traditional jump scare house per se, but more of an eerie storyline with unsettling characters throughout. And the scariest part? Your mind is the one leaving you within the doubt of time and horror throughout.
Remember Jack's Toy Factory at Cedar Point? Happy Jack's Toy Factory revolved around a creepy and twisted toy factory, introduced in 2009 and running through the 2011 season. And I remember all of the creepy dolls and toys throughout as an adult and being pretty creeped out by it all. I wasn't scared of clowns or any of that, but the house itself brought a creepy chill to it, and we'd love to see the house by Gatekeeper bring back the nostalgic and eerie Toy Factory haunted house. It's pretty creepy as an adult, let's be honest, everyone.
In 2022, Cedar Point replaced G.A. Bulkling's Eerie Estate with The Haunting of Eerie Estate. This new attraction focuses on a fictional paranormal investigation within G.A. Bulkling's Eerie Estate. As Ghoster Coasters, this is utterly perfect for us. Change nothing, keep the paranormal investigation and the local Sandusky team in there, and maybe even add fake props for guests to use, such as ghost detectors with triggers to fully enhance the experience. But honestly, this is 100 out of 10. Perfect haunted house attraction, and this needs to be a staple for years to come. The absolute best haunted house in the entire park, without a doubt.
Transforming Club Blood, Orpheus, Deprivation, whichever you remember the haunted house by Steel Vengeance, as we need a new theme back here. And with the witches moving over to nearby Gemini Midway, who's to say their lair isn't right over there by Steel Vengeance? With an eerie presence of black cats as you approach, ravens and crows flying through the air, and a gaggle of witchly laughter from within. Do you dare enter the witch's lair? As you enter, beware, the witch's stew is fresh to brew, with animal bones and humans too. Will you be the next, or make it through? As you wind through the witch's lair, narrowly avoiding her at every turn, the scares continue as owls hoot and cats cross paths. Hey, did you see that? Ah, she's got me. But that's just your friends in fear, 'cause here comes the witch. Secret ingredients? Don't become. A witch we're not and won't become. The witch's lair would add on to the Fear Fair area by Gemini and add an even deeper immersive layer to the Halloweekends story.
I want to rid the slaughterhouse. Let's get rid of the old and tried slaughterhouses. We've seen it enough. It's the same at every single park, and it takes little to no imagination to bring to life. And yeah, vampires aren't that difficult either, we get that, but a fun change that resonates more and has a lasting memory. Dracula or something of the sort, rather than a bunch of meat and scary butchers. As you enter the blood-stricken halls of Dracula's castle and overhear the roar of Millennium Force under the moonlight, the atmosphere is set as guests of the vampires offer you a sip of blood, and ask for yours too. A spectacle of vampire waltzes will you, and by the end you just don't realize you're one of them. Accept the offer and become one of them, or deny your fate and, well, take your waltz straight to their den.
Step right up. Professor Von Fleece has searched the world to bring you a collection of sights, frights, and delights that are beyond belief. And believe it or not, we'd keep this the same and add more of the old school carnival vibe to the entrance area and walk up to the creepy Fearground. The Fearground Freak Show promises a thrilling and unsettling journey through the dark underbelly of the carnival world. The house is executed well every year, and the lines always show the popularity, so keep it as it is.
In contrast to the indoor haunt attractions, the outdoor haunts offer a vastly different experience, your own. Each walkthrough offers a new chance for scares, a new chance to see the spooky delights, and a new way to interact with friends and family throughout. And yeah, you can actually film in the scare zones and have a lasting memory of a jump scare for you and your friends. Scare zones and outdoor mazes make up a big portion of the popular haunt attractions at Halloweekends, such as Cornstalkers being one of the most anticipated openings every night and always garnering long waits. We've discussed the Bone Walk already and the rest of the haunt areas, so let's break down some of the mazes themselves.
The Cutthroat Cove Outdoor Haunted Walkthrough is one of the most hidden areas for Halloweekends. Tucked off under Maverick's Brake Run, the area takes you through a bunch of cool scare scenes and some jump actors along the way to give you some frights. And yeah, some of the best views of Maverick you'll ever get. Focusing on the Pirates theme and treasure, let's turn this into a western battle between Maverick and Steel Vengeance, but full blast, with historical references reenacted such as some of the historical aspects between the families, mind blasts, and bring the cohesive battle going on outside into a walkthrough maze that tells the rest of the story going on outside its spooky gates.
As the name implies, Cornstalkers 2.0 centers around a spooky corn maze. Think of the towering stalks of corn concealing lurking dangers and unexpected frights. Being in a secluded and wooded area of the park only added on to the creepy atmosphere of the attraction. But what if we took it back to under the moonlight midnight hours, where werewolves exist and the truly terrifying comes to life? Werewolf Canyon returns to the peninsula for one more howling good fright. Werewolf Canyon debuted in 2003 in the Thunder Canyon area of Cedar Point. The attraction centered around a spooky werewolf legend featuring monstrous werewolves and moonlit ambiance to settle in the scares. Be careful as you venture deep into the murky woods through a trail where the hunters have become the hunted. A pack of bloodthirsty werewolves have taken revenge on those who dare invade their domain. With only the moonlight's light to help you navigate through, can you make it out? From the Cedar Point lore pages from back in the day, this attraction sounded amazing. And who wouldn't want another howl after the recent years of Cornstalkers and revamps? And well, it's time for a second go around and revamp take on the werewolves. And hey, let's pack it full of werewolves and jump scares, eh?
Formerly known as Terror Island until 2010, and known as Blood on the Bayou since then, the island area of Cedar Point has the potential to be one of the best areas in the entire Halloweekends haunt attraction experience. So for this one, we're going to propose a few ideas, and two of them are inspired directly by or taken ideas from an existing IP under the Warner chain, which with the merger, we know Cedar Fair and Six Flags, now being one, have usage of more IPs.
Converting Blood on the Bayou to a skeleton ghost town similar to Terror Island on the park could bring the classic creepy feeling of ghostly watchers lingering in the woods and skeletons waiting around every corner. But this idea feels on par with what Blood on the Bayou is already, with a different theme, so how about a zombie island? Much like Scooby-Doo movies, but just based off the idea, not taken from the IP or anything. You enter the island and encounter a number of zombies from all over the bayou, asking you to join them for eternity. Will you be able to make it off the island, or will you forever become part of the Cedar Point Zombie Island? But being a longer walkthrough, we'd love to see an increase in scare actors along the walkways, and we know it's hard being such a long attraction. But the walk back there should be one of the best experiences alone, and bringing the escape from the island horror would be a thrill like no other. But what if we brought a new IP to the parks, or should we say a former IP back to the parks?
Scooby-Doo! And the rest of Mystery Inc. Oh, it's marvelous to see you out on top. Oh, I'm so sorry it's the second time this week.
And of course, we know the caution tape involved with getting these things approved, so let's imagine we can make those happen without the hassles. Spooky Island, a theoretical amusement park from the Scooby-Doo movie, and bring it to life on the actual island. Much like the movie, but accessible by foot for us crossing the bayou. Accessible by ferry, Spooky Island emerges from the mist in the theoretical version, but ours just emerges from the bayou.
Ah, but that's what Spooky Island's all about. Realizing your worst fears.
And guests are greeted with the spooky ambiance of the characters. Now we know implementing an IP is ridiculously hard and lined with red tape, and the Warner Brothers and beyond, they're going to want to approve any of the changes that need to be heavily scrutinized. But again, we're thinking beyond the red tape and imagining it can happen. That's our spooky take on what we would convert the island to, with Scooby-Doo and the gang guiding you off the island and a peek at Scrappy along the way. Fun for the family and kids alike.
More haunted house ideas include something along the lines of Undertaker U Asylum, but more in the storytelling theme of Cedar Point lore, Cedar Point's Haunted Hollows, filled with lore from the park's past and nods to references that tie together the overall story of Cedar Point's existence. Come along as you study the past and get caught along the way in the halls forever. Just another idea adding to the folklore of Cedar Point and the ever-evolving Halloweekends, making this a destination event for years to come and spooky fright along the Erie Peninsula. We hope you enjoyed the spooky and creepy aspects of Halloweekends, and of course, we know the park is missing some fun original IPs like Hollywood Horror Nights having Stranger Things houses and stuff like that. So of course, we'd love to see more of those experiences, but it's difficult to do, and Cedar Point and Six Flags need a lot of IP usage to pull that type of event off. And time will tell if that ever happens, though we'd be frightened in the best ways to see that type of haunted attraction throughout the parks.